How's it going, everybody? Daner here with North Central Coins, and welcome back to another exciting episode of the most rare and valuable coins in Canada. Today we're diving into the world of Canadian numismatics to uncover 5 Canadian coins that can still be found in your pocket change that, if identified correctly, can be worth some big bucks. Most of the rare or legendary coins that you hear about are actually so rare that your chances of finding them are pretty much slim to nil, but I have done my research and due diligence to make sure that every coin we discuss on these lists could actually be sitting in your change jar right now. Even though these aren't your average pieces of currency, just about anyone can find these Canadian coins if you do know what to look for, and in this video we will explore the historical context surrounding the production of these holy grail coins and delve into why they hold such importance in Canadian numismatic history. Additionally, we will discuss the distinguishing features, significance among collectors, and also the potential value if you were ever to find a legitimate example. Before I do get into this, I would really appreciate if you guys would smash that thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and also ring that bell notification so you can stay up to date with my new content as it is being released. And then without further ado, what do you say we get right into it and break down my picks for the most valuable Canadian coins still in circulation? Let's get it, guys. So to start this off, we need to begin with quite the mouthful, which is Georgius VI Gratia Rex ET India Imperator. Yes, quite the tongue twister, right? Well, this translates to George VI, by the grace of God, King and Emperor of India. Quite the royal title, if I do say so myself. But hold on to your top hats because this phrase had to go. Why is that, you ask? Well, in the year 1947, India said cheerio to British rule and gained its independence, becoming the Dominion of India and also the Dominion of Pakistan. During this time, the once mighty British Empire was experiencing a rapid transformation as its colonies sought self-governance and independence. The departure of India from British rule marked a significant turning point in history, symbolizing the end of an era for the empire. Coins were still a necessity though. They decided to produce 1947 dated coins while waiting for the new tools and matrices from the Royal Mint. But here's the twist. They actually added a small maple leaf next to the date to signify that these coins were actually minted in 1948. Very sneaky, eh? A numismatic nod to the changing times. Now, there are very few coins in the world like the Canadian 1947 dated coins that have nearly as many varieties. Now let's talk about the silver dollars. The silver dollars come in 2 different varieties, the blunt 7 and pointed 7 for the silver dollars, and several other eras or varieties you can look for. And then there are the 1947 1-cent coins or pennies. These exist in 2 different varieties, the blunt 7 and pointed 7. The blunt 7 is the scarcer of the 2 in the world of numismatics. Scarcity means value. It's like finding the golden ticket in a sea of regular chocolate bars. Now, the Canadian half dollar does not want to be left out of this 7 party. It also has several different varieties for the 7, the curved left 7 and the curved right 7. These variations in the design of the 7 on these coins may seem insignificant to some, but for collectors they can make all the difference in determining the value and rarity of a particular coin. The hunt for these unique 7 varieties add an extra layer of excitement and challenge to the world of Canadian coin collecting. Now let's fast forward just a little bit into the year 1948, when the new tools and matrices from London finally arrived and the Maple Leaf coin's reign came to an end. The new inscription, George VI Gratia Rex, which stands for King George VI by the grace of God King, took center stage on the obverse of the coin. This is a clear example of how all coins are not created equal. The silver $1 and 50-cent coins from 1948 became unicorns of their time. Why, you ask? Well, those change tools and matrices from London took their sweet time to arrive and production started fashionably late. It's like waiting for your favorite artist to drop a new album. The anticipation is real. When the coins finally hit circulation, collectors and enthusiasts eagerly sought them out, creating a frenzy in their numismatic community. The scarcity and unique design of these coins made them highly coveted, adding to their allure and value. And finally, we have the piece de resistance of the 1947 series, and those are the small dot varieties. In a sea of maple leaves on some 1947 Canadian nickels and quarters, there it is. A tiny dot, like a period at the end of a numismatic sentence. The cause? Well, it's a bit like a coin's freckle. Nobody knows for sure. Some say it's dye chips, others blame dye deterioration. Either way, it's a quirky and rare minting error that makes collectors' hearts skip a beat. The small dot variety on 1947 Canadian nickels and quarters is a unique minting error that adds an extra layer of intrigue for collectors. Its mysterious cause, resembling a freckle on the coin, only enhances its desirability. This rare and quirky feature truly captivates the hearts of numismatic enthusiasts all over the world. Now, what do you say we get into the specifications and values for the 1947 dot coins, starting with the nickels? The 1947 plain date 5-cent coin has a mintage figure of 7,603,724. The 1947 maple leaf has a mintage of 9,595,124, and the mintage figure for the 1947 5-cent piece is unknown. Some of the specifications for this coin: it is composed of 100% nickel, has a weight of 4.54 grams, it has a diameter of 21.3 millimeters on one side and 20.87 millimeters on the opposite side. The designer and engravers for the coin are T.H. Paget and Thomas Shingles for the obverse, and Thomas Shingles and G.E. Kruger Gray for the reverse. The edge of the coin is smooth, it is magnetic, and it has a diaxis in metal alignment, as is the standard for most Canadian coins. In terms of value, the 1947 dot nickel actually does carry a premium at the low end. You can expect to get anywhere from $5 to $15 if you have one that is absolutely beat up at the bottom of the Sheldon scale, so that would be considered an AG3. When you get up to the VG8 territory, it is worth around $27.80, and it can be worth all the way up to $165 for an AU50 example. When you start to get into the MS territory, it can be worth around $270 for an MS60. It can be worth $455 for an MS63, and all the way up to $2,850 for an MS66, which is currently the highest graded known example. If you were to find one and it's scored a little bit higher, so we are talking MS67, you could easily be talking a $4,000 or $5,000 coin. Now let's get into the 1947 dot 25-cent coin. The mintage figure for the 1947 plain date 25 cent is 1,524,554. The 1947 maple leaf mintage is 4,393,938. And the mintage figure for the 1947 dot quarter is unknown, just like the nickel. The specifications for the Canadian 1947 quarters: it is composed of 80% silver, 20% copper, has a weight of 5.83 grams, a diameter of 23.62 millimeters. It was engraved and designed by T.H. Paget for the obverse and Emmanuel Hahn for the reverse. It has a reeded edge, is non-magnetic, and has a diaxis in metal alignment, as is the standard for most Canadian coins. So let's discuss the values for the 1947 dot quarters. This can also have a premium on the low end. It could be worth probably anywhere from $25 to $40 for an AG3, so that is at the absolute bottom of the Sheldon scale. It can be worth around $67.60 for a VG8. It can be worth $394 for an AU50. Now, as we start to get into the MS territory, we start to see some massive price jumps. It can be worth around $624 for an MS60, $1,200 for an MS63, and $4,590 for an MS65, which is currently the highest graded known example. If you were to find one of the 1947 dot quarters and it did score any higher, then you could be sure to see some massive price jumps. We could easily be talking a $15,000 to $20,000 coin if it hit the MS67 mark. Now, once again, to identify these coins, basically, you want to look to the bottom right-hand side of the 7 in the date 1947, and if there is a small dot in place of the maple leaf, then you have one of these dot coins. You have to be very thorough, because the maple leaf, if it is worn down or faded, can appear like the dot. So you definitely want to get a microscope and check it under there, or at least zoom in very close with your phone. And then you want to get a second opinion before you actually do show it to anyone or try to sell it, because chances are it is probably a 1947 maple leaf, but these things are out there and you do want to know how to identify them and what to look for. What do you guys think about these 1947 dot coins? What would you do if you ever found a legitimate example, or if you ever have found any of the coins discussed in this video or any that are similar? Let me know down in the comments. I would love to know. The Canadian $2 coin, known officially as the Toonie, was first issued on February 19, 1996 by Minister of Public Works Diane Marleau. Its French name is Pièce de $2 Canadiens, often known as 2 piastres or 2 piastres round. It has the greatest current market value of any Canadian coin as of 2023. The Toonie is a bimetallic coin with a polar bear illustration by artist Brent Townsend on one side. Like all other coins now in circulation on Canada, Queen Elizabeth II is featured on the obverse. The text Elizabeth II/DG Regina text is written in a font that is distinctive from other Canadian coins. A patented, distinctive bimetallic coin locking mechanism is used to create the coin. The expected lifespan of the coin is 20 years. The no longer in circulation Canadian $2 bill actually costs less to produce, but has a much shorter lifespan of just 1 year. The Loonie and Toonie have undergone several design revisions, including new security elements, according to the Royal Canadian Mint, which they unveiled on April 10, 2012. Prior to 2012, the inner core of Canadian Toonies were composed of aluminum bronze coated with multiply plated brass, while the outside ring was composed of steel coated with multiply plated nickel. Previously, coins had an aluminum bronze inner core and a pure nickel outer ring. The thickness lowered from 1.8 to 1.75 millimeters, and the weight decreased from 7.30 to 6.92 grams. The smaller denominations of Canadian coinage already use multiply plated steel technology, according to the Mint, which produces an electromagnetic signature that is more difficult to forge than that of standard alloy coins. Additionally, employing steel results in cost savings and prevents variations in the price or supply of nickel. Since many of the notable security measures were not implemented until the year 2012, there have been several cases and reports of Canadian counterfeit Toonies. I have actually stumbled across them myself in some of my coin roll hunts. They are pretty easy to tell apart. Usually you can tell by the pointy nose on the Queen and what they call the camel toe on the polar bear. But that is definitely the small downside when it comes to producing coins out of steel and cheaper alloys, is that it makes them a lot easier to counterfeit when they do not have advanced security measures. The word Toonie is a combination of the numeral 2 and the name of the Canadian $1 coin currently used in circulation, the Loonie. Although it is often misspelled Twonie or Twoonie, Canadian publications and the Royal Canadian Mint officially use the word and spelling Toonie. In honor of the Inuit and their northern culture, Jack Iriak Anahuac, a member of parliament from an Aboriginal tribe located in Nunavut, proposed the name Nanook. However, this suggestion was largely overlooked in favor of the well-known Toonie. The Royal Canadian Mint acquired the rights to the name Toonie in 2006 since it had gained such widespread acceptance. Following a contest to give the bear a name, Churchill was chosen, paying homage to both Winston Churchill and frequent sightings of polar bears in Churchill, Manitoba. Finance Minister Paul Martin announced the replacement of the $2 banknote with a coin in the year 1995 in the Canadian federal budget speech. The Royal Canadian Mint then spent $17,400 Canadian to canvass 2,000 Canadian households regarding which of the 10 theme options they preferred. Under the direction of C. Truong, the Royal Canadian Mint Engineer Division designed the $2 coin to be made from 2 different metals. The metals for the bimetallic coin would be lighter and thinner than those produced anywhere in the world at the time. To join the 2 parts, the engineering division selected a bimechanical locking mechanism. By the end of 1996, the Winnipeg facility had struck 375 million of these coins, and the coin was officially launched at Ben's Deli in Montreal on February 19, 1996. The community of Campbellford, Ontario, home to the coin's designer, constructed an 8-meter tall or 26-foot Toonie monument similar to the Big Loonie in Echo Bay and the iconic Big Nickel in Sudbury. Unlike the loonie, the toonie and $2 bill were not being produced at the same time as each other, as the $2 bill was withdrawn from circulation on February 16, 1996, 3 days prior to the toonie's introduction. Some of the original toonies that were released for circulation actually had a defect. When the first batch of toonies were struck hard or frozen, some of the coins might separate due to a malfunction in the bimetallic locking mechanism. The Royal Canadian Mint reacted by saying that there was a 1 in 60 million chance of a toonie falling apart, despite media reports of defective toonies. Section 456 of the Canadian Criminal Code defines defacing coin currency as purposely attempting to split a toonie. This is actually a criminal offense in Canada. Now, what do you say we get into the toonie that you guys all came here to find out about, and that is the 1996 German Planchet. When the first $2 coin was officially launched on February 19, 1996, an event was held where it was said that 60 million of the new coins should be made available. Not yet ready with the new technology to meet this demand, Canada actually purchased from Deutsche Nickel, a German supplier, planchets needed to produce the first 60 million coins. The Royal Canadian Mint was able to make the first 60 million $2 coins in 1996 thanks to the production of 10 million pre-assembled planchets by the company Deutsche Nickel in Germany. Unlike the Canadian planchet toonies, the 1996 $2 German planchet coins feature lines with a dull matte texture across the ring. It is considerably easier to distinguish between the German and Canadian planchets when the coins are uncirculated. However, once these coins enter circulation and start to wear down, the distinguishing lines become less noticeable. Despite this, the use of German planchets was a crucial factor in meeting the high demand for $2 coins in Canada at that time. Now, before we get into the values for the 1996 German planchet toonie, first let's go over some of the basic specifications for the coin. The 1996 Canadian planchet toonie was produced at a mintage figure of 315,483,000. The 1996 German planchet was produced at a mintage figure of 10 million. The coins are composed with an outer ring of 100% nickel and an inner core of 92% copper, 6% aluminum, and 2% nickel. They have a weight of 7.3 grams, a diameter of 28 millimeters, a thickness of 1.8 millimeters. The designers for the coin are Dora de Pedri Hunt and Augo Aran for the obverse, and Brent Townsend and Augo Aran for the reverse. It is magnetic and has a die-axis and metal alignment, as is the standard for most Canadian coins. So when it comes to value, a lot of the time when you are dealing with Canadian loonies and toonies, it is very rare that you will find any, even with errors or varieties, that are worth a lot of money in a low grade state. Usually they have to be in a mint state to get the most amount or premium for the coin, and the German planchet, unfortunately, is not much different than the other cases. If you do find one of these and it is at the low end of the Sheldon scale, so beat up and worn and been through the meat grinder, firstly, it's going to be very hard to identify that it is a German planchet, and it's not going to be worth much or anything above face value. But as you start to get into the MS scale, you start to see some pretty big price jumps for this coin. It can be worth around $80 for an MS63. It can be worth $271 for an MS65, and all the way up to $694 for an MS66, which on Coins in Canada is currently the highest graded known example. If you were to find one of these and it's scored in the MS67 range, there is no reason that it could push the $1,000 mark. This is definitely a super rare variety to look for, and they did make quite a few of them. 10 million is a pretty high mintage figure, but the trick in these is identifying the German planchet. It will look a little bit more greasy. You will see those dull texture lines as well. I have actually found one of these German planchet toonies in one of my hunts, and I could definitely tell it apart from some of the other uncirculated 1996 Canadian planchet toonies. They stand out quite a bit. Now, just to give you a quick idea, if you were to find one of the regular 1996 Canadian planchet toonies, the maximum amount of money you could actually get for that coin is $78 for an MS66. So the German planchet is worth about 10 times more, 10 times as rare, 10 times as valuable. What do you guys think about these 1996 toonies? What would you ever do if you found a legitimate example of one of these coins, or if you ever have found any of the coins discussed in this video or any that are similar? Let me know down in the comments. I would love to know. Nickels have always held a special place in the world of coin collecting. In Canada, they've been part of the coinage landscape for over a century. The journey began in the year 1858 when the province of Canada, which included Ontario and Quebec, introduced its first nickel or 5-cent coin, commonly referred to as fish scales by those versed in Canadian numismatics. These tiny little coins had a weight of 1.16 grams and a diameter of 15.5 millimeters and were composed of 92.5% silver. When we fast forward to 1922, Canada decided to switch things up a bit. The Canadian 5-cent coin underwent a transformation. It gained some weight, now coming in at 4.54 grams, and it also increased in popularity because it was now composed of the precious metal nickel and similar in size to the American nickels of the time. The legendary Prince of Canadian coins are 5-cent pieces from the year 1921, which are among the rarest and most valuable circulation coins in Canada. The number of known specimens is thought to be somewhere around 400 to 480. The majority of the 1921 mint run was melted down after the Canadian government approved an act in May 1921, enabling the switch to the bigger nickel coin. At an auction in January 2010, the coin that was thought to be the finest known specimen, which was a PCGS graded MS67, sold for $115,000. The Canadian Numismatic Company then sold it to a private collector for $160,000 at the beginning of 2012. By 1937, Canada had decided to give the nickel a makeover, and what better symbol to grace its reverse side than the iconic beaver. The beaver has long been a symbol of Canada's industrious spirit and played a crucial role in the early development of the country. From 1937 until now, the beaver has proudly graced the reverse of our 5-cent coin, with the exception of a few commemorative issues throughout the years starting in World War II. In celebration of Canada's 100th birthday in the year 1967, a special 5-cent coin was issued. This special commemorative coin features the image of a rabbit. This coin is a favorite among collectors, not only for its design, but also for its historical significance. There are some notable errors in the 1967 rabbit nickels and some of the other denominations for 1967s that can be worth some insane amounts of money, but we're going to be covering all of those in a future video. The one tip that I will give you for your 1967 coins is to check if they are out of alignment. Usually Canadian coins will come in metal alignment, meaning the orientation of the obverse and reverse are facing the same way. Sometimes the 1967 coins will come in coin alignment, which is the standard for American coins, and sometimes they will just come with a rotated die, meaning the die could be off axis facing in any direction, and this can add some huge premium to the coin if you can identify it correctly. In the year 1982, the Canadian Mint switched from producing nickels in 100% nickel composition to cupronickel, which is composed of 75% copper and 25% nickel. This change was made in an effort to cut costs due to the rising price of precious metals in the global market. Now, you know you're becoming a coin collector when you start referring to your pocket change as potential treasures, and finding a 1996 nickel in your pocket change might just make your day. Coin roll hunters and collectors alike have become aware of a rare Canadian nickel heir from the year 1996 that can be worth some really decent money even if it isn't in the greatest shape. If you were to check the Coins in Canada website a few years ago, you would only see 2 varieties listed for the 1996. These 2 varieties are the near and far 6. Usually you'd be looking for the far 6, and that variety can actually be worth a couple $100s if it hits in the high MS mark. To tell the difference between the near and far 6, you need to look at the final digit 6 in the date 1996, and then look at its proximity and distance to the bottom of the D in Canada. If the 6 is very close to, but not making contact or touching the D, then you have the near 6. If there appears to be a space or gap between the number and the letter D, then you have the far 6, and the far 6 is actually the more valuable of the 2 varieties. But what if I told you that there is a third variety that is actually much more rare and valuable than the previous 2? You could say one 1996 nickel to rule them all, and that is the attached 6 variety. Now, whether due to severe die deterioration, cracks, or any number of other production problems that can occur during the minting process, it would seem that a rare error or variety escaped into circulation. To identify this, you need to look once again at that final digit in the date, and if that 6 is touching or making contact with the D in the inscription Canada, then you have yourself a fairly valuable Canadian nickel. Now, before we get into the value, some of the details and specifications for this coin, if any of these are off, it might indicate that it is not legitimate. And you might think it's actually silly to check all of these little specifications, but you would be surprised at the counterfeit coins that can be purchased online these days. Coins like the 1921 half dollar and 5-cent piece, the 1948 silver dollars, even the 1944 Tomback nickel, and even some minor modern errors and varieties. I've seen listings for all of these counterfeit coins, some of which only sell for $1 or $2. So it never hurts to be thorough, especially if you already went to the work of identifying the attached 6. So the specifications for the 1996 nickel: it is composed of 75% copper, 25% nickel. It has a weight of 4.6 grams, a diameter of 21.2 millimeters, a thickness of 1.76 millimeters. The designers and engravers for the obverse of the coin are Dora DePadre Hunt and Ago Aran, and G.E. Kruger Gray and Thomas Shingles for the reverse of the coin. The edge of the coin is smooth, it is non-magnetic, and it has a diaxis in metal alignment, as is the standard for most Canadian coins. Now, in terms of value, Coins in Canada doesn't actually list low-end price values. The estimate starts kicking in around AU50, and they do evaluate this coin at $134 for an AU50 example, but I do think that it is worth anywhere from $10 to $20 for a G to VG example of one of these coins. People want them. They are definitely a good example of a Canadian error and some significant die deterioration if the D is connected to that 6. Now, when you start to get into the MS mark, you see some pretty high price jumps for this coin. It can be worth around $150 for an MS60, but if you are to look at the FAR 6 1996, that coin can actually be worth $300 for an MS67. So I don't doubt at all that this nickel could easily be worth up to $1,000 to $5,000 for an MS67. If you were to find one that was in a high mint state, your best chance at this point of finding one that is that nice is probably from an uncirculated roll. And never say never, because I have found 1967 rabbit nickel uncirculated rolls from the bank before. These were original bank rolls, so I know that there can be stuff like these 1996s out there. You just need to keep your eyes open, and if you find an uncirculated roll and there is an attached 6 as the ender, then chances are most of the coins inside that roll are going to have the attached 6 variety. Usually when you have an error or variety, most of the coins in the roll will have the variety, or none of them will, because all of the coins are struck and packaged consecutively. So if you do ever happen to come across a 1996 uncirculated roll of Canadian nickels, the first thing that you can look for is this attached 6, and if you do see that on the ender of the roll, I definitely suggest you buy it. But even if the entire roll is FAR 6s and you send them in to be graded and they score an MS66, MS67, it is still a fairly rare and valuable nickel. You do not want the 1996s with the close 6. That one is the least rare and valuable of the 1996 varieties. So if you find any of those while you're coin roll hunting, just chuck them to the side. Now, what do you guys think about the 1996 attached 6 nickel? What would you do if you ever found a legitimate example, or if you ever have found any of the coins discussed in this video? Let me know down in the comments. I would love to know. The Canadian quarter, or 25-cent coin, is a small circular coin with a reeded edge that is now composed of nickel-plated steel and silver in color. The coin's official name, according to the Royal Canadian Mint, is the 25-cent piece, although people typically refer to it as a quarter instead, just like they would an American quarter. It is also referred to as a caribou or 30 sous in Canadian French. Currently, the Royal Canadian Mint's facility in Winnipeg, Manitoba is where the 25-cent coin is now produced for circulation. Recently, up to 2 billion Canadian circulation coins were struck each year at the Mint's facility in Winnipeg. While the effigy of the reigning monarch has appeared on every Canadian coin produced by the Mint since 1908, reverse designs have changed considerably over the years. The Mint often introduces new commemorative designs that celebrate Canada's history, culture, and values. Now, before we get into the 1993 Mule Quarter, I thought I would give you guys some interesting facts you may not have known about the Canadian quarter. To commemorate Canada's 60th birthday, the release of the first commemorative coin was actually planned for 1927. J.A.H. MacDonald won a competition to design the 25-cent coin. However, the Mint did not choose to use the winning entry. The caribou, which is currently featured on the quarter, was actually initially intended for the 5-cent piece. The beaver, which is now shown on the nickel, was actually intended for the 10-cent coin, and the blue nose, which is featured on the dime, was intended for the Canadian quarter originally. The 1991 circulation quarter has the lowest mintage of any post-World War II coin. This low mintage was attributable to a work stoppage and also the depletion of supplies in advance of the introduction of the commemorative quarters the following year. Only 459,000 Canadian 1991 quarters, including collector sets and proofs, were actually struck. In 1997 and 1998, no Canadian quarters were actually put into circulation. Only 525,257 quarters were produced in the year 1997. Only 395,617 were manufactured in 1998. None of them were released as common copies, instead they were all released as collector sets or proofs. The design of the caribou on the 25-cent coins dates back to 1936 when the Canadian government changed the designs on the reverse side of coins in response to a change in the sovereign's appearance on circulation coinage. Emmanuel Hahn, a Canadian artist, created the caribou pattern, which was first used in the year 1937. It was briefly substituted in certain years, including 1967 for the 100th anniversary of Canada, where the reverse of the coin featured a Canada lynx or bobcat, and also in 1973 for the 100th anniversary of the Northwest Mounted Police, which featured an RCMP officer on a horse for the reverse, 1992 for Canada's 125th anniversary, and also in the years 1999 and 2000 for the Millennium Coin Program's winning designs. When the Mint issued the 12 commemorative coins in the year 1992 to mark the 125th anniversary of the Confederation, there was one design for each province and territory that had existed in Canada at that time. These actually served as the basis for the 1999 to 2008 US 50-state quarters initiative. Each quarter featured a different image on the reverse, which featured a unique design representing each province or territory. Now let's briefly discuss mule coins. A mule coin is not some exotic coin from a faraway nation, rather it is a coin that has a peculiar minting fault that makes it extremely unique. Imagine holding a coin that on the face looks to be of one given denomination, but then when you turn it over, the message is entirely different on the other side. It's similar to having a coin that actually serves two purposes. These coins are the result of a mix-up where mismatched dies were used to strike the coin. The term mule actually refers to the fact that these coins are hybrids like a mule or donkey, combining elements from two different coin designs. It's as if the minting process took an unexpected turn, creating an incredible numismatic oddity. One of the most famous examples of Canadian mule coins comes from the Canadian Paralympic series, where the wheelchair curling coin is muled with the obverse of regular Olympic issue quarters. Instead of having the Paralympic privy, the wheelchair curling coin will have the Olympic privy on the obverse of the coin. This unique combination of designs adds a level of intrigue and collectability to these mule coins. And usually whenever there are unexpected twists in the minting process, it will create a fascinating numismatic anomaly that will attract both coin enthusiasts and collectors alike. Now, even though the wheelchair curling mule is an incredibly rare quarter that can be worth some decent money today, we are actually here to discuss the 1993 mule. Now, to understand how this coin came into existence, we first have to go back into the year 1991. There was actually a strike at the Canadian Mint, and as I previously mentioned, they had a shortage of supplies. The following year, there was a high demand for coin production to make up for the previous time lost. Tasked with the issuance and release of 12 different designs for the 1992 provincial series, the Canadian Mint was most likely overburdened, and there were several notable errors and variations that you can look for in this date range. But due to all this commotion, it would seem that a few 1993 Canadian quarter reverse pieces were accidentally paired with the obverse dies from the previous year. So to identify the 1993 mule, it is actually pretty simple because it will have the date 1993 and the caribou design on the reverse side of the coin, and it will have the diadem portrait of Queen Elizabeth on the obverse, as well as the double date of 1867 to 1992 underneath her bust or portrait. This is the result of a mix-up where one of the employees most likely forgot to take one of the dies out of the presses from the previous year or run. Either way, this quality control mix-up has opened up the coin heavens and rained down a nice holy grail piece for us to look for. Now, some of the details and specifications for this coin, if any of them are off, it may indicate that the coin is not legitimate or authentic. 1993 quarters are composed of 100% nickel. They have a weight of 5.05 grams, a diameter of 23.88 millimeters. They have a thickness of 1.58 millimeters. The coins were designed and engraved by Dora de Pedri Hahn and Ago Aran for the obverse and Emmanuel Hahn for the reverse. The edge of the coin is reeded, it is magnetic, and it has a die-axis in metal alignment, as is the standard for most Canadian coins. Now, something important to note is if you were to discover a 1993 Canadian Mule Quarter, it would most likely be out of a proof set from the year 1993. If you do send one of these away to be graded, it will get the PL attribution, meaning that most of these 1993 mules, if not all of them, are probably coming out of 1993 proof sets, but that doesn't mean that you have a 0% chance of finding one of them in the wild. Some of them may have made their way out into circulation. You never know with a coin like this, especially when it is a mule and an heir like the 1993 mule. Now, if you were to send one of these away to be graded by PCGS, it would get a PL attribution, not the MS or not the SP. In terms of value, it is actually extremely rare and valuable. If you're able to cherry pick these out of a proof set, you can make a massive profit, even if you pay $30 or $40 for the set, because this coin can actually be worth around $21,000 for a PL65 and all the way up to $26,000 for a PL66, which, as we know right now, is currently the highest graded known example. So this is a Canadian coin that is pushing the $30,000 mark, and the great thing about it is it is fairly modern. A lot of the time when it comes to Canadian proof sets, people like to cherry pick out the 1991 and 1992 sets. In the year 1992, they actually released a special issue Caribou Quarter with the double date 1867 to 1992 on the reverse of the coin, and you can only get those quarters out of proof sets. So a lot of the time people like to buy the proof sets so they can get that special Caribou Quarter. So most likely these 1993 sets probably fly under the radar, and you might be able to get a good deal on one. And if you can actually look at the set before you buy it, you might be able to open it up and take a look at the quarter. And if the quarter has the 1993 Caribou reverse, and then it has the double date of 1867 to 1992 on the reverse under the Queen's bust, then you have yourself a holy grail coin. What do you guys think about the Canadian 1993 Mule Quarter? What would you ever do if you found a legitimate example, or if you ever have found any of the coins discussed in this video? Let me know down in the comments. I would love to know. World of Coin Collecting has long maintained a special spot for nickels. They've existed in Canada's currency for more than a century. The journey actually began in the year 1858 when the province of Canada, which included Ontario and Quebec at the time, introduced the first nickel or 5-cent coin, commonly referred to as fish-scaled by those well-versed in Canadian numismatics. These tiny coins weighed 1.16 grams, measured 15.5 millimeters in diameter, and contained 92.5% silver. In the year 1922, Canada made the decision to make certain changes. One of the changes was to switch from using silver to nickel as the primary metal for their 5-cent coins. This decision was made due to the rising cost of silver and also the need for a more cost-effective alternative. Additionally, the size and weight of these coins were also adjusted during this time to better align with international standards and become almost identical in shape and size to the American 5-cent coins. By the year 1937, Canada had made the decision to redesign the nickel, and what better image to adorn its backside than the recognizable and iconic beaver. The diligent beaver has long been a representation of Canada's work ethic and was essential to the country's early growth. Except for a few special releases over the years, beginning with World War II, the beaver has proudly graced the reverse of our 5-cent currency since the year 1937. Canada's 100th birthday was commemorated in 1967 with the release of a commemorative 5-cent coin. It actually has the picture of a bunny on it, and due to this design, it has become a favorite among Canadian coin collectors. The Canadian Mint began making 5-cent coins composed of cupro nickel in the year 1982. Instead of 100% nickel, the coins would be composed of 75% copper and 25% nickel. This was in response to the escalating cost of precious metals on the worldwide market. Now, what do you say we get into the coin that you guys are all here to find out about, and that is the Canadian 1990 Bare Belly Nickel. Now, this coin is a fascinating numismatic rarity that has captured the interest of collectors and enthusiasts worldwide. This unique variety is known for a distinctive error that occurred during the production process, resulting in the removal of most or some of the fur from the underbelly of the beaver depicted on the reverse side of the coin. This error has led to the coin being affectionately referred to as the bear belly variety, and it is highly sought after by collectors due to its rarity and also the intriguing story behind its creation. Now, to fully understand how the Canadian 1990 bear belly nickel actually came into existence, it's essential to delve into the coin manufacturing process in Canada. The Canadian Mint, who's responsible for producing Canada's circulating coinage, employs a meticulous and multi-step approach to create coins with both precision and quality. The process begins with the design phase, where talented artists and engravers work together to craft the intricate and meaningful designs that will grace the nation's coins. In the case of the 1990 nickel, the design features the iconic image of the beaver, which is a symbol of Canada's rich natural heritage. Once the design is finalized, a master die is then created. This die serves as a template for producing numerous working dies, which will be used to strike the actual coins. These working dies are crucial to ensure consistent coin quality and detail. And then die polishing. Die polishing is a critical step in the coin minting process. It involves meticulously smoothing and refining the surface of the working die to ensure a high level of detail in the struck coins. This process is typically performed multiple times to maintain die quality. Now here's where the unique era of the bear belly variety comes into play. During the die polishing process for the 1990 nickel working dies, an unusual mistake occurred. Most of the fur on the underbelly of the beaver was inadvertently removed from the reverse side of the die. This error resulted in the beaver appearing to have a bare belly when the coins were struck using these specific dies. Now what makes this error even more intriguing is that the die was polished several times, leading to different degrees of apparent baldness in the beaver's underbelly on the coins produced from these dies. So depending on the significance and the amount of detail that has been removed from the fur on the beaver's belly, the coin will be either referred to as a full bear belly or a partial bear belly, and this definitely affects the value. If you want to get the most amount of money, you are looking for the full bear belly variation. Now before we get into the value of this coin, let's go over some of the specifications. It is composed of 75% copper, 25% nickel. It has a weight of 4.6 grams, a diameter of 21.2 millimeters, and a thickness of 1.76 millimeters. The designers and engravers for the obverse of the coin were Dora DePadre Hunt and Ago Aran, and for the reverse of the coin, G.E. Kruger Gray and Thomas Shingles. The edge of the coin is smooth, it is non-magnetic, and it is in metal alignment, as is the standard for most Canadian coins. Now when it comes to value, this is actually a modern nickel that does hold some premium even on the low end of the Sheldon scale. Now if you did find one of these and it's in a G4, which is beat up and put through the meat grinder, basically a parking lot coin that has almost no detail, then it is not worth much above face value. You might be able to get 50 cents to $1 for it if somebody really wants it for their collection. But the price estimates actually start to kick in at the EF40 mark, where it is evaluated at $5 for an EF40 example, which isn't too bad for a modern nickel. It is honestly one of the most valuable and rare of the modern Canadian nickels to look for, and based on previous trends, in 10 or 20 years, the value will only keep increasing and less of these will be out in circulation, so the value of the coin will definitely go up. Now, as you start to get into the MS scale, you see some decent price jumps. It can be worth around $25 for an MS60, around $55 for an MS63, and all the way up to $378 for an MS65, which is currently the highest listed price example on coins in Canada. If you were to find one and it's scored in the MS66 or 67 range, there isn't any reason that you might not be able to get $500 to $1,000 for this coin, especially if it has the full bear belly designation as well. Now, if you were to send one of these to PCGS, they do actually attribute the bear belly variation. So if you do find one and it is in really good shape, definitely advisable that you send it off to be graded by PCGS. And if it scores in an MS66 or 67, you have yourself one incredibly rare Canadian era or variety coin. Now, what do you guys think about the Canadian 1990 bear belly nickel? What would you do if you ever found a legitimate example, or if you ever have found any of the coins discussed in this video? Let me know down in the comments. I would love to know. Also, I would really appreciate if you guys would smash that thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and also ring that bell notification so you can stay up to date with my new content as it is being released. If you guys enjoyed this video, I've been releasing a whole lot of videos just like this one on Canadian, American, Australian, British, and coins from all around the world. So go check those out and stay tuned for the future videos just like this one that I'm going to be releasing. But that's pretty much going to do it for this one, folks. So until the next one, everybody, peace out and have a good one, y'all.